Hey, what's up, guys? It's your boy D3 Dark Sonic here, and today I'm going to be analyzing the poem Ouija by Sylvia Plath. Okay, so let's get right into it by reading the poem. It is a chilly god, a god of shades, rises to the glass from his black fathoms. At the window, those unborn, those undone, assemble with the frail paleness of moths, an envious phosphorescence in their wings, vermilions, bronzes, colors of the sun, in the cold fire will not woolly console them. Imagine their deep hunger, deep as the dark, for the blood heat that would ruddle or reclaim. The glass mouth sucks blood heat from my forefinger, though God dribbles in return his words. Though God too writes aureate poetry in tarnished modes, maundering among the waste, fair chronicler of every foul declension. Age and ages of prose have uncoiled his talking whirlwind, abated his success with anger, when words like locusts drummed the darkening air and left the cobs to rattle, bidding clean. Skies once wearing a blue divine haunter, ravel above us, mistly descend, thickening with motes to a marriage with the mire. He hymns the rotting queen with saffron hair, who has saltier aphrodisiacs than virgin's tears. That bawdy queen of death, her wormy couriers are at his bones. Still he hymns juice of her, hot nectarine. I see him, horny-skinned and tough, construe what flinty pebbles the plough bay upturns, as ponderable tokens of her love. He, godly, doddering, spells no succinct Gabriel from the letters here, but floridly his amorous nostalgias. Okay, so first off, what I got from the title, I just basically thought of the game Ouija, which is a game that allows players to call upon ghosts and communicate with them, things like that. Okay, so now let's get into annotating each of the lines, well, most of the lines for that matter, since we're on a limited time. Okay, so first line of the first stanza, it is a chilly god, a god of shades. So what I see when she says God, is she talking about her ex-husband, Ted Hughes, which how I know that she's talking about him is because in one of her other poems, Mad Girl's Love Song, she's also mentioned him as a god, so that's how I know. And what she's saying by chilly god and god of shades is that he's basically a god of death. Chilly god being basically chilly, synonymous to death, as well as shades being synonymous to death, as when there's shade, there's darkness, and darkness means death. Okay, next line, rises to the glass from his back fathom. So how what I see when she says glass, I interpret that as the glass from the uh, piece that is being played on the Ouija board. So that's the piece that you touch and move around to see if the ghost is talking or not. And there's a glass right in the middle of that piece. So that's how I understood that. And also what it means by his black fathoms, again, talking about Ted Hughes, which Black Fathoms is basically, it's the depths of darkness. Fathoms being like the depth, and then black darkness, you know. So he, and then also again, when it says God, a God of darkness and things like that, it's also a spirit or entity, which also could relate to the Ouija board. Okay, so next line, line three, at the window, those unborn, those undone. So window could also relate back to the glass, which is basically that that little window which connects the dimension of spirit realm from life. So yeah, that's how I see that. And then those unborn or undone are basically people who has passed away, who didn't get to do things that they wanted in life and things like that. And also unborn, basically people who died before actually being able to get things in life they wanted or being able to grow up. Okay, so line four, assemble with the frail paleness of moths. So what she's doing is she's creating a metaphor between those spirits or entities in that spirit realm between moths. So, and she's saying that they assemble like moths. And what do moths do? They basically gather around light, which is also said uh, on line 6 and 7, but we'll get there. Okay, so line 5, an envious phosphorescence in their wings. So basically, what she's saying is that they envy that light. They want that actual light. Phosphorescence means they emit light, but it's not an actual heat source. They want that heat source. They want to be a part of that, which is how moths are. They want to gather around that heat source, but they can never get it. Just like in line 7, where it says the coal fire will not wholly console them. They cannot be a part of that heat source because they're just not compatible with each other. But let's go on to line 6 now, where it says vermilions, bronzes, colors of the sun, which is basically vermilions is basically a reddish hue, and which has to do with the color of the sun, just like bronzes. And it's just connecting that to the coal fire, which the coal fire has the color of the sun, just like a light. So yeah, and what I see when going through 4 and through 7 is that she could relate that to herself, as she wanted to be like Ted Hughes. She was jealous of Ted Hughes because of the fact that he was a more famous poet than her. So I could see her as a moth wanting that type of heat source, wanting to be famous, which would be that heat source. Okay, let's go down to 8, which it says, imagine their deep hunger, deep as the dark, which is also relating back to the moths, or to the spirits of the Ouija board, which are not within the Ouija board, but which come to communicate with other people through the Ouija board. So what it says by the deep hunger, deep as the dark, is just how they feel, how bad they want that light, just like Sylvia Plath wanted that status as a famous poet. Okay, line 9, for the blood heat that would riddle or reclaim. So blood heat, from what I've researched, is basically the average temperature of the body. So it goes back to the spirits, as they want to go back, and they want that light. They want to be able to finish their goals. They want to be basically have a human body again. And Rudder reclaim, basically they just want that back, as I said. Okay, so line 10, the glass mouth sucks blood heat from my forefinger. Again, with blood heat, where they want that life. It's sucking that life away from her forefinger. And glass relating back to the glass of the Ouija. So she's basically playing with the Ouija board right now, which she did play with it while she was still alive with her husband Ted Hughes, and they actually claimed to meet a ghost named Pan, if I recall. And on this line, there's also personification, as it says the glass mouth sucks blood heat from my forefinger. Again, okay. Line 11. So the old god dribbles and returns his word. So what dribbles mean? Dribbles could mean when it could relate back to a Ouija board where you're moving it around. So you're dribbling, you're moving it around. So basically, she is talking to this old god from the Ouija board, and he is speaking back to her. Okay, so now stanza 2, line 12. The old god too writes Ariat poetry. So as I said, the god being Ted Hughes, and he also writes poetry, which when she says Ariat poetry, she means basically great poetry, things like that. It's related to gold, so gold means brilliant. You could say he writes brilliant poetry. Line 13, in tarnished modes, wandering among the ways. So she's saying she writes brilliant poetry, basically in a negative view, just like she did. And wandering, if you didn't know, means babbling. So babbling among the ways, writing his point of view in that negative position, basically. Line 14, fair chronicler of every foul declension. So again, putting that positive with the negative, saying how great he is at writing this type of poetry. Line 15, age and ages of prose have uncoiled. So what that means is that he's written a lot of poetry, and prose meaning basically it's the most common type of writing, which is paragraphs, things like that, sentences. So I'm guessing she's saying that he writes his poetry that way. Line 16, his talking whirlwind abated his excessive temper. So I'm guessing they had problems at home when she says this, as it says his poetry abated his excessive temper. Jeez, okay. And if you didn't know, abated means basically to decline, things like that. Line 17, when words like locusts drum the darkening air. So basically, his poetry had a lot of impact on whoever read it. And left the cops to rattle, bit and clean. We'll just leave that alone. We have more things to talk about in a limited time. So, line 19, skies once wearing a blue divine hauteur. Yeah. What I analyzed from this and interpreted is that skies once wearing a blue, basically being that their marriage was once really good. But then divine hauteur, if you didn't know what hauteur means, it means basically arrogance or pride. So that started getting in the way of their marriage. And it says rabble above us. So basically, like I was saying, it was coming into the relationship. It says mislead to sin, still saying that basically it's coming down onto the relationship and thickening with moat. So it's getting worse and worse every time. Then to a marriage with a mire, what that means is basically like their marriage is sinking from that hauteur, basically. Now, stanza 3, it tells exactly why their marriage was going downhill, which line 22, if I believe, he hymns the rotting queen with saffron hair. So what she is doing is describing basically the woman he had an affair with, which, if you didn't know, hymns meaning praise, which comes from the Greek word hymnos, which also means praise. The rotting queen with saffron hair, she's describing that mistress that he had. And that's a very negative description, which you can say that she's basically insulting her. And she's not very happy about him being with her and not happy about her at all. Line 23, who has saltier aphrodisiacs. So if you didn't know, aphrodisiacs is basically an item that brings sexual desire. So when I hear saltier, basically it means to me basically more sexual desire, more, she's sexier than her, basically sexier than Sylvia Plath, if you'd say. And then there's another metaphor that continues on line 24, then virgin's tears. So who has saltier aphrodisiacs than virgin's tears? So basically she's just better than that. Not saying that Sylvia Plath is a virgin with the virgin's tears, but she's just that great. She brings that much sexual desire to Ted Hughes. That bawdy queen of death. Bawdy could mean whore, slut, things like that, which is also another insult to her, just like Rotting Queen. So yeah, line 25, her wormy couriers are at his bones. So when I see wormy couriers, that would basically mean fingers, things like that. Still, he hymns juice of her. Not hot nectarine on line 26, hymns again, praise. Juice of her, what I would see of that, basically sex, so he's having a lot of sex with her. Line 27, I see him horny-skinned and tough, construe. So what I see with this, construe, basically meaning he believes this certain type of thing, which what he believes on line 28, what flinty pebbles the plow bay upturns. So if you didn't know, flint, could make fire, fire being light, and giving off that heat. So he basically wants that light, he wants that heat from her. And also, Plowblade, I connected that back to one of his poems, which is The Hawk in the Rain, if I believe. And the character within that poem was actually set within a plowland, which is basically farmland where you plow and set dirt aside to put seeds in and plant things. So yeah, that I see that connection there. And he says that's ponderable tokens of her love. So he sees that those flinty pebbles as tokens of her love, so which is why he's with her, I guess. And line 30, he godly doddering spells, basically she's just describing him. Line 31, no succinct Gabriel from the letters here. So Gabriel being an archangel of God, he sent letters. So I'm guessing what she's saying right now is that he sent letters back to Sylvia Plath in line 32, but floridly his amorous nostalgias. So basically he sent letters about him missing her, if I would say. Okay, so we're done with all of that, and that's good. I would rate this poem 9 out of 11. You know, it's not depressing enough. I would really like it to be more depressing, you know. But now let's get on to the Loot Crate. Yeah! So, this month's Loot Crate theme is Mr. Fitz, and okay, let's get it open. And next theme, if you didn't know, is gonna be your mom, you know? Okay, let's open this thing up. There's nothing there. I guess it's just like Mr. Fitz's soul.